All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Managing Partners Podcast. I'm Kevin Daisey, and I'll be your host. And today I'm bringing to you someone that's an expert in answering the phones and bringing them in here to share tips for your law firm on what it means answering phones, why it's important, tips and tricks, things you need to look out for. And Michelle, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. So, obviously, on the show, we're majority we interview attorneys, successful ones, how they're growing, and scaling their firms, what they learned along the way. But we also have been bringing in experts outside of law firms that work with law firms, that provide services to law firms, but what they see and how they can help, and share some information that can be helpful for y'all. So, hopefully, you'll find some
Sure.
tactical, helpful tips on the episode today. And always, if you have any questions, you can post comments when this is live and ask us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So, Michelle, first things first. Actually, let me share to everyone listening early on here is when you want to check out Jill's office. If you want to check them out, you can go to the address below. If you're listening, it's thisisarray.com. So that's our web address. thisisarray.com/Jills. That's JILLS to check them out. And later on, I'll share a discount code if you're interested in their service for any reason and it makes sense for you. We have a discount code so you can get started with them for a discounted rate. So we'll share that here in just a bit. So, Michelle, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're located, and what's the story behind Jill's office.
For sure. All right. So, we are actually based out of the Salt Lake City area, and my background, I actually got my undergrad in psychology, behavioral science, and then I got my MBA. And I've just always been passionate about the psychology of humans and how that affects business and how you market different ways. Obviously, that's your ground according to how people think and feel. I mean, as we all think that we're very logical creatures, and we are, but we're primarily emotional creatures who justify our emotional decisions with logic. And so there is so much power in understanding how emotions affect people's decision making when it comes to what attorney they're going to choose, and just the science and the art behind that. And so much of business, even though technology has lots of other ways to communicate now with website chats and on social media and text messaging, various sorts of ways, still the majority of business happens on the phone. And so it's really important in your practice to understand what should be happening on the phone to close more deals, to capture your leads, and just be able to bring in a better return for your business. So that's something I'm super passionate about, especially with attorneys, just because I feel like that when someone is calling an attorney, they're obviously in some heightened emotional state. I mean, there's usually some sort of tragedy or some sort of itch or need in their life that they're needing someone they can really trust. That will have a super big impact on either their business or various parts of their life and their families and everything. And so they're very emotionally charged when they call in. And so knowing how to connect with that customer and build that trust over the phone is super important in order to close more deals and grow your business.
That 100%. Super important. And you know that if they're reaching out and you don't answer, or you're late to the phone, or how you represent yourself, they're on to the next if they don't feel comfortable, or if you didn't answer at all. Maybe it's after hours and you don't have
Right.
a system in place for that. So obviously, with Jill's office, it sounds like obviously you deal with phones, but talk about Jill's office is right now. Like what is really your day to day, and how you're helping a law firm uh, right now if they were like a client.
Sure. Yeah. So we help them in a variety of ways. if you have a practice, you probably have a phone that rings, and if not, you need to get one. And I'm sure Array Digital helps you get your phone to ring. So we love working with marketers. But we can work with firms in a variety of different ways. A lot of them already have some sort of office admin who is their primary receptionist, and they love Jill's office. It becomes the office admin's best friend because we just help carry their load. As far as what happens when they are in deep in another project, maybe they help out with invoicing or other aspects of the business, and are trying to have some focus time. Okay, we'll let it roll over to Jill's, and we can be your backup during that time. Or what happens when they're on lunch or sick days or holidays or calls that come in before and after hours. We're a great just kind of backup support to make sure that no call goes unanswered and that every customer and lead gets captured that calls in. And even to your current customers, just to have that exceptional customer experience that they're always going to get live help. And so that's how we service the majority of our clients, though we do have a lot of clients that use us as their full-time receptionist, and we can do that as well. So we're really there as little or as much as you need. We answer as if we're your actual receptionist with your company. We answer with your company name, and in that moment, we serve as your receptionist and try to, capture the lead, gather all their information, go through some sort of intake in order to see what they're needing help with, and then pass that information on to you. So kind of just that first impression, first defense to capture the lead.
Yeah, that's excellent. So, in my mind, I'm thinking smaller firm or a startup firm. Maybe that person maybe they just have an admin, but they're helping with everything else as well. Or before even hire that person or receptionist, it's probably more cost effective to do something like this. And we've used a service like yours before, and it was amazing, and it helped us a lot. So, missing those calls, if you're a busy attorney and you're trying to grow and then hire people and scale, that's challenging. So you definitely want to leave enough money on the table and miss any calls. But I think it's also how they're handled. We have a client that came on board with us, and I was calling to check in with them on something, and we were just about to start some marketing for them and new website and all this other stuff. And I tried to call the managing attorney, and the phone tree and the system and the experience was terrible. And it was like a call center, but it was like you could hear all these people, and it was just not professional. It was just really like someone just trying to transfer you to somewhere. And she was working with like really high net worth people in like intellectual property and venture capital. And I was like, there's no way if I was one of those leads that I would go further than that experience. I wouldn't even give them my business. So, I let them know, hey, you probably need to change that right away. So, kind of looking out for those kinds of things, because you can market, you can advertise, but if that's not tight and the experience is not well, then you're just losing money out the back door. So
Sure.
Super important. And I like kind of the idea that it's not just for full time. It might just be while the receptionist has to step away. Maybe there's a meeting. Maybe they have people in the waiting area that they have to chat with, and the phone rings and they can't answer that phone because they're talking to a client in the office. So that is something I never really thought about before, but that's huge. If you're in personal injury, that could be 30 grand, 100 grand.
Oh yeah.
$1 million, right? So
Absolutely.
if it's divorce, it could be 5, 8, 10 grand for one client. And I can
or
go
maybe
on
they're
the list,
just on. Yeah, they could be on the other line too. That happens people seem to call in pairs for some reason. So if your receptionist is on the other line, again, that call, you're going to miss that call going to voicemail if you don't have a backup. So there's lots of scenarios where it's really smart to have something in place.
Interesting. Just curious, how does that work? So like, say my phone system right now, I'm on the phone and I only have one person. So so it's going to go to voicemail or the tree, right? How do you intercept that extra call coming in and take it over?
Yeah. So it works within your call system. You have total control of the forwarding, but what most clients will do is set up conditional call forwarding. So meaning it rings your office person first, or you first, or whoever else is helping out with the phones, and then it just rolls over to us after 3 or 4 rings if nobody picks up.
Got it. Excellent. Awesome. That's cool. We're not a heavy phone volume place over here, so I don't have as much experience in that, but I know attorneys, the attorneys I saw, all we talk about phone calls,
Right.
form fills, how those went, how they were, and sometimes we have to say, hey, you got this many calls, or you got these chats, or whatever. They weren't responded to, they weren't answered,
Right.
and so that's a problem because we can send all the leads we want, but if there's an intake problem, we can't help.
I saw this. I was reading a study the other day from the law technology today, and they were saying that for attorneys, the majority of them, like it was like over, I think it was over 50%, take over 3 days to respond to a lead. And that just like killed me because, in those 3 days, especially if it's something where they're like, I need help now, you're going to lose them. And so I tell people all the time, have something in place. You're spending money, you're investing in getting marketing done. So make sure you got something in place to actually not only capture the calls, that's important too, but making sure that you're following up on your web leads, or, any kind of Google ads you're doing, or Facebook ads, or whatever it may be, even if it's a billboard. I mean, just make sure you've got something in place to actually follow up promptly with the leads that come in. And I mean, the good thing about when I hear numbers like that, though, is it also is such an opportunity that those that are doing it, you're going to be way ahead of the game of everyone else, because your competition probably is not calling them back. So if you actually call back, you're going to get a better closing ratio. And same thing on the inbound. 35%. It was saying 35% of attorney calls get missed. So that's 1/3 of the calls that come into attorney business are getting missed. And again, there's just a great opportunity there. If you've got something in place to make sure every call gets answered, you're going to better convert.
Man, that's crazy. That's a pretty crazy stat. So you listening, whoever that I'm pointing at, if you're one of those people, you better change that right now. I don't, whether you talk with Michelle's company or not, do something in house. But yeah, it's a lot of times we see a lot of those things miss, fall through the cracks. And yeah, people are not going to wait, especially if it's a situation that they're in. They're going to go to the next and move on. So, and this is, I kind of like what you're saying too. Like, this isn't just with phone calls. Like, this is a problem. This is with everything. If you get a Google review, if it's a 5-star review, you got to respond to it. Thank them, whatever you got to say. If it's a 1-star, you got to respond. Be professional, take it offline, and assist them as much as you can. But those are timely things. You can't go respond to a review like 5 that you got 5 years ago. It's just not going to work. If you do social media and people comment and you don't respond, if they message you on Facebook because you have allowed that and you missed that message, people can, message you on Facebook and say, hey, I'm interested, or I need this. There's all these channels that we have now. And what people do is we need a profile on this. We need a profile on that, Instagram, blah, 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 blah. And then you forget to realize that they could use that channel to reach out. Google My Business. You can message on there and inquire, ask questions. And most of the things are completely unmonitored with most firms that I see. So, we fill some of those gaps that I just mentioned, but those things have to be, as a business, as a law firm, you have to do all that stuff. Right. Just like you have a nice office and you put a suit on and you have a business card. And I'm not saying all law firms have to have a suit and all that stuff. Actually, I appreciate the ones that are the opposite of that, but those are things that you have to do to run a business successfully. And so it gets overwhelming. There's a lot of crap out there, but I would say the phone calls are probably the top of that list. If you don't answer the phone and do it fast and properly, then you're missing a lot of revenue. So,
right. And I think a huge key to that is just smart delegation, because it is overwhelming knowing all the things you need to do to run a successful business, and you should not be doing it all. Even though you can do it all, you shouldn't be doing it all, because you need to use your mental space to, and what you and you alone can do in being able to, work those deals and be able to practice your law. And that's where your brain power should be spent. And so making sure that you've got someone in place to delegate all these other things to, so you can take it out of your headspace. I mean, we all have a limited headspace, and the more you can free up your brain so on what your best thing that you can do for your business, then the better you're going to be at your trade, because you've got the time to actually do it and the mental energy to do it. And I mean, another thing we're really passionate about here at Jill's office is work-family balance. It's like we want to make sure that people have time that they can, as much as they can, turn off work when they go home, and know that those to-dos have been done as much as possible, and that they don't have to worry if their phone rings again, that someone's going to get it. They don't have to step away from, some other activity that they're engaged in. And that's a huge part of just your happiness and also your success. I think you work better if you do have that balance in your life.
100%. Yeah. Dropping the ball, or, feeling like you failed somebody or didn't get back to them, that weighs on you. Right.
Yeah.
And it's
I
not
love the
something
example.
we ever intend to do.
Right. I mean, I love the example of Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg followed the same thing, that if you look at their pictures, they're literally wearing like the same thing all the time. Like Steve Jobs always wore a black turtleneck and jeans. I think Mark wears, jeans and I said a gray shirt. I can't remember, but just
The gray
simple
t-shirt,
outfit, right? Yeah, and they talked about how they actually consciously did that. So that was one less decision they had to make every day, so that they could save their, because there is such a thing called decision fatigue, that as the more decisions you make, the lower the quality is going to be, just because you only have so much capacity. So again, that's the more you can delegate out, so you're not having to make the decision, even if it's just making a decision of how to handle that call, and how to put on your A game, and every moment on that call. It saves your energy again for what is most important for you to do.
Yeah. So for me, me and my business partner, Eric, we got these polos, and I got mostly black or some blue. I got a gray one, I think, but we call it the outfit. And
I love it. Just your uniform.
I
Yeah.
I got a bunch in my closet, and that's that
Yeah.
and jeans. Or like today, I had a in-person meeting at it's like a law firm administrator group, and so I got slacks and polo. But
oh, nice. Okay, but you don't have to make that
easy.
decision again. Yeah, it makes it easy.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to some nice event, I'll put a suit on, but it's just the space we live in. But
Right.
but no, that's a good point. And kind of, obviously on this podcast, we talk about business a lot, and ways to grow your firm, and what others are doing. And when we were talking backstage, Jill's office, you guys are growing very successfully, over 100 and staff. So you have some scale, and can help, law firms of probably any size. And you said you guys just hired like 7 people this week or something like that, or today?
No, just today.
Today.
Yeah. It's
So I figured I'd mention that. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, we want to make sure we're answering calls as promptly as possible. We know nobody likes to wait on hold a long time, so we're constantly bringing new employees on just to make sure that our answer times are as fast as possible. And I mean, we put all our new Jills through our 3-week boot camp in customer service. A lot of people don't realize actually how much training should go into who answers their phones, because again, that is the front door to your business, that and your website, and you're going to make that first impression with that client who could make or break, that $100,000 deal, if that's how big that client is worth to you. And so making sure that they understand, how do you talk to different personality types, because there is a little change in what you focus on, your speed, how much information you give about different parts of the business according to what their personality is. Knowing how to use your phone voice to show empathy on the phone, and how to match the caller as far as, if their emotional state, whether they're excited, distressed, and learning how to identify that and kind of match it. All these things make a difference in you being able to connect with the caller and knowing how to gather information. For instance, people are really wary giving their email address, so always attaching a reason to why they should give their email, and not make it a yes or no question, but assume they're going to give it and just give the reason why. There's lots of little things like that again can just help make sure you're actually capturing the lead, and even if you don't close them immediately, that you've got their information to continue the conversation. I mean, again, in the study I was reading the other day, they were saying that 84% of law firms do not gather the email on the call. And again, that just like kills me, because all the follow up and all the potential you can do with that client. I mean, email is gold. And then like 45% of them didn't even get their phone number. Obviously, with caller ID, it's not always a big deal, but if you make sure, get that permission to text them, you can follow up with the text. So there's so many valuable things you can do by making sure you at least are gathering their information on the call. And that's something that we train all our receptionists in, is just is the signs of all these different things that you need to make sure you're doing on every phone call to bring a better return.
That's awesome. Maybe I need to go through that boot camp.
Yeah, come on over. Come to Utah. We'll train you. I'm sure
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming law firms, you hire receptionists. I've had them before, but you give them a little bit of answer like this, say this, and I talk to some law firms that I'm calling that are clients, and of course I get the gatekeeper even though they're already a client, and they're not usually the best experiences. They're kind of rude, or they don't sound very inviting, at least. So, and at that point, they don't really know who I am. So, I see that quite often. But so I think
I'll tell you,
having that skills and knowledge is important versus just blah 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 law firm.
Right.
You're expecting you're going out of your way for them, for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, from personal experience, we've been shopping around for a corporate attorney for our office just the past few months, and the one that we decided to go with, it was their receptionist. That was that first. I mean, we had talked with a few others, but the receptionist just like super impressed me with how friendly she sounded on the phone, how responsive she was. She followed up with an email, and to schedule that meeting with the attorney, and then the attorney itself, and just how responsive he was, and how I felt like he really understood our situation and genuinely wanted to help us. And we are paying more for him than some of the other ones we talked about, because of the value of knowing he's going to be responsive, and we want someone responsive, and just feeling like we can really trust him and that he understands us. And that's what made the decision. It wasn't a question in price. It was a question in who is the one that we're going to be most comfortable working with, and that we feel like we can really trust, that's going to help us. And I'm assuming for the majority of shoppers, that's what they're looking for, especially when it comes to an attorney, because what you're doing is just so vital to whatever part of their life you're helping with.
Yeah, absolutely. And the higher value, I think, type of case or practice area, the more that makes sense to me. So that makes a lot of sense, because you got to think about that first impression, right? Is how are they going to work with my needs or my case or my matters that I have? Are they going to be organized? Are they going to respond to me? Basically, are they a well-run business with systems and processes in place? And if the phone's answered weird, or there's not someone to answer the phone and they don't follow back up, then you're like, and that's the same thing like my business, right? If we don't do all those things and you're going to hire me to do your marketing for a year or more, you're going to want those things in place, and they seem competent, they're follow up, they have a system, and that says a lot of positive things.
And I'll tell you, anyone who's listening, anyone who's listening and doesn't use Kevin right now, Kevin, I've been on several podcasts. I have never seen anyone with an amazing amount of follow up and all your emails and communication as you. So I'm like, and again, that impressed me. I'm like, this guy knows his stuff. This guy is going to take care of me if he does his marketing. So it sends a message, but you need to make sure you're doing that same thing with with your own practice. And especially when they're a new client, because what's going on in my head when I'm shopping for someone and they aren't being responsive is, okay, I've got this money. I am wanting to pay you it. And if you're not responding to me now, what happens when something goes wrong? What happens when I have a problem? I need your help desperately right now. If you're not responding when I'm shopping, then when you already know you have me, how's your response level? It's going to be even lower. And so that's sending a message. And again, it's helping me decide if I'm going to trust and want to do business with this attorney is just how well are they communicating? How responsive is their team? When I call in, am I getting someone to answer? And do I feel like I'm being heard? And that's super important. You don't want to feel like your call is just going to dead air or just to a voicemail that might take 3 to 10 days to respond to, you know?
No, 100%. And I appreciate the comments. But kind of back to you, like we have a process, we have a whole, plan and process, and we delegate. I have assistants and people. And if it looks like it came from me, it probably didn't. But that's that's built on purpose, right? And it's to make sure that you're going to show up. And we got your headshot for this, and we got your bio and information and whatever else we wanted. But and we're going to follow up with you about 10 more times to make sure you share our episode, and
I love it.
you're going to be featured in the, you'll be featured in the newsletter, and you'll get all these updates. So that's all part of a process. And so,
right. And it sends a message. It sends a message that I'm important and this prospect or client is important. You care about them. You have the time to help them. And that's going to help me make that decision that I want to do more business with this person, or I want more, attorney legal help from them. It sends a total message.
Yeah, and 100%. And if there are attorneys listening, if you're like, say, a solo, right? You can use automation. You can use someone like Jill's office, and you can virtual assistants for certain things. Like you can do a mix of those things. Don't automate everything, right? Don't do that.
Right.
And if you kind of mix it just right, and it's like, man, these people are all over it. Like they're everywhere. So, do what works best for you. Make sure, even if you're solo, you're taking care of these things. I think when you're solo, it's even more important because if you miss a call or you're in court, right? You're a solo with no assistant. You're really trying to get started. It's not worth to miss that call. That's for sure. And a pretty good chance you're going to. So,
right. And I mean, one call can pay for a whole year of whatever that service is, if you're just closing even just one extra deal and some, depending on how big the deal is. So it's really a no-brainer to get something in place, whether you use Jill's or, a VA or whatever it is, get something in place just to make sure that you've got that covered and it's one less thing you have to stress about.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to go take a look at our phone system now and see where we're missing the boat. Well, Michelle, all helpful stuff makes sense to me. I see a lot of problems with attorneys firsthand, because when they come clients, we kind of take a look at that stuff too. Maybe even like mystery shop and see what that experience is like. Because again, if we're sending them traffic or leads, then we're not helping them or ourselves if the phone's not being answered. So, big takeaways. I'll go ahead and share, everyone. If you are interested in Jill's, at least check them out. If you just use the link below, it'll take you to their website. It just happens to be our link that'll take you there, but you can check them out, see what they're about. This is theray.com/Jills, and you can check that out. And if you want to sign up for them now or in the future, we have a code that they created for us. I appreciate that. I think it's $250 off. So if you sign up with them, so you just use the code ARRAY, so ARRAY, and you'll get $250 off, and you can try them out and see if it is a good fit for you. Michelle, anything you want to add to that?
I love it. I mean, one last takeaway I'll tell you that everyone should be doing, whether it's your receptionist or you on your calls when you're talking to your clients, is the power of using their name. I know it's a basic thing, but a lot of people don't consciously think about it. Dale Carnegie in his classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, said, someone's name is to them the most important sound in the world. And they've actually done MRIs of people's brains and said a variety of names. And when they said the person's own name, literally chemical things happen in the brain, like the dopamine and serotonin go off, and it just releases all these hormones of more happiness and trust. So when you're on the phone, consciously use their name at least once. We tell a receptionist try to use it 2 times at least. And again, that's going to help establish that trust and that relationship that will hopefully last long term. If they're already your client, is maintain that. And if it's a new one, it does help make a difference.
That's a huge tip. I appreciate that at the
Yeah,
end there. So yeah, if you answer the phone, get their name, repeat their name, say their
right.
name. That's huge. That's something I feel like I knew that and probably haven't used it in practice. So, but I don't know. I'll check myself on that one. I'm a bit of a people person, so I see people out and about. I know people's names. I feel like I use that in person, but I don't know about on the phone. So, great tip to get started with for sure. That's huge.
Awesome. Yeah,
All
thanks,
right.
Kevin. It was so fun being here with you today, and for everyone listening in.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing. Everyone, that obviously the phone's super important for firms. So if take a look, audit what you're doing. Maybe call your own firm from someone else's phone and see what the experience is like. And
Oh
I've
yeah,
had people
for
do
sure.
that, and you'll be pretty surprised. Hopefully you're not. Hopefully you're impressed and everything's good. But if not, either make some changes or fix it, or reach out to Michelle's company, Jill's office. And I guess that's it. If anyone needs help, any marketing assistance, have questions, it doesn't matter. You can LinkedIn me, of course. You can go to thisisaray.com. We have all the episodes from this podcast there. We've had Ben Glass, Ken Hardison, tons of amazing guests, all the way from expert level to solo practitioners that might be in your exact practice area. So you can sort by state, you can sort by practice, find great episodes. And soon I think I'm going to add a category for industry experts like Michelle here. So we'll have a category for that as well. And so in that, it's going to be, we have cybersecurity episode that we just had released. We have Michelle's episode here. I have another one that helps lawyers with their time management and their calendars. So all kinds of good stuff. If you have any ideas for episodes or people you'd like to see on the show, reach out. If you're an imagining partner and you're like, oh, I'd love to be on that show, reach out. You can LinkedIn me, Kevin Daisey, on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to respond to you and get you on the show. So that's it. Michelle, anything else you want to say before we go?
Awesome. No, just thank you so much. This is so fun.
Awesome. Well, hang on with me. Everyone else, have a good day. Go grow your law firms and go help people, and we'll see you soon.